So we're talking about unit economics, and what I want to highlight right up front is how valuable this is to you, right? It will help you understand at which rate and how well you can scale and grow. It will give you insights into your profitability. It will help you understand the overall health if you're talking to an investor or someone who may want to acquire you, that overall health of the business. And then it will help you think about staffing, right? Resource allocation. Am I putting the right resources against the right projects? And do I need to hire or do I need to cut staff? All of this comes back to understanding your unit economics. So that's why it's so important. So how do we do this, right? Just a broad recap of how to calculate unit economics. The simple equation is you take your revenue and you subtract your costs by unit. That's it, right? It's not complicated. But let's think about how we do that, because we don't do it in exactly that order. The first thing you want to do is understand your revenue. And you can't understand your revenue in the context of unit economics until you define the unit. So when you define the unit, what you're really saying is, okay, what is the thing? What's the single item that's going to govern all this calculus? And for an agency, it's not normally customer, right? For an agency, I recommend it being project. And the reason that's important is because when a customer comes back and does project after project after project, and then another one only comes in and does one, you're going to get some pretty different dynamics when you're trying to average that out. And so my recommendation is think about it as project. And if you have one of those clients that just does one phase after another, after another, after another, then just think of phase as a project so that now you have units that are more alike than dissimilar, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have some projects that take 2 weeks and some that take 8. I get that, right? But that's very different than some projects take 3 weeks and some projects take 3 years. That's going to skew your data. So you first define the unit. I recommend for agencies that the unit is a project. The second thing you do is you go, okay, let's look at revenue for that unit. And you go, okay, you could do this for a quarter, you could do it for a year, but you're going to take in a period of time all the revenue that comes in for these units, so revenue for projects, in that period of time, divided by the number of projects you had in that period of time. So if you're like, oh, we made $250,000 this year, or we made $250,000 this quarter, you're going to take a period of time, you're going to take the revenue, and then you're going to divide it, and you go, oh, we did $250,000 this quarter and we had 10 projects. That means our average revenue per project is $25K, right? You go, okay, that's simple. Define the unit, take revenue in the period of time, quarter or year, take the revenue, total up the revenue from units, divided by the number of units. Now you have average revenue per unit. That's going to be the first part of our unit economics equation. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take the revenue and then we're going to subtract the cost, right? But we're going to actually subtract the average cost per unit, just like in our revenue, it's average revenue per unit. So when we go to do that unit part for cost, we have to go the same thing, pick the period, quarter or year. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at, all right, what are the costs? Now, I recommend doing all of this in a yearly basis simply because some of your costs don't appear in the span of the quarter, or if you're doing it in a month, they don't span the month. So you might have an accountant who does your invoicing and sends it out, and they may bill you once a year, but when you're looking at quarterly, you just don't insert their costs. That's not the way to do it, right? So I normally start with at a year basis, and I go, okay, take all the costs in the year, and these are your direct costs for yourself, right? All your staff, any folks you outsource to who also work on projects, any support staff, meaning your accountants or anything else that's part of it, your software licenses, the tools you use, right? All of this stuff goes into it. And, right, those are all costs that we normally think about. So we're like, oh yeah, this is the cost, this is the cost, this is the cost. But you're also going to take all the sales and marketing. Now, if you don't do any marketing, you're like, no, then it's just about sales. But if you do marketing, so if you're buying ads or anything else, it's all the ads you bought, not the campaign that worked. And when you're doing sales, sales is every call you had, every meeting you had, every proposal you wrote, the time it took to write that proposal, even if you didn't win the business. If you have 10 projects in a year, right, that you pitch and you only win 3, it's the cost of the 10, not the 3, right? So you're taking all sales, all marketing, plus staffing, costs to do the work, outsource to do the work. You're putting all that in and dividing it by the number of units or the number of projects you did in the period. And that gives you an average. So let's say that you had $250,000 worth of costs in a year and you had 10 projects in a year, then you have $25K average cost per unit. Now, if you had $25K average revenue per unit and $25K average cost per unit, your unit economics are 0. You have 0 in profit from, per project. Now, that doesn't mean that you have 0 cash flow because these costs ebb and flow, the revenue comes in, but you don't want to live like that, right? So that's when we start going, okay, we can function on either side of the equation, drive revenue up by increasing rates or drive costs down by cutting things out or lowering our need for some of these things, firing some people, whatever we do. We have 2 different places where we can affect your unit economics. So hopefully that makes sense, and we will talk more about it when we connect.